She grabbed a stranger's arm to escape, then learned he was the most feared crime lord alive. What would you do if the stranger you reached for turned out to be someone everyone feared? And what happens when one desperate choice connects two completely different worlds? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we begin, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful story filled with unexpected encounters, difficult choices, and unforgettable emotions. Thank you for spending your time with us and for continuing to support the channel. It truly means so much. Now tell us in the comments, would you ever trust a complete stranger if reaching for them felt like your only way to escape? With that question in mind, settle in, because our story begins at the moment one instinctive decision changes everything. Please pretend you know me. Those were the 5 words that changed my life, spoken to a man whose name I didn't know and whose arm I had no business touching. It was 11:47 on a Thursday night in downtown Chicago, and rain glazed the sidewalks until every streetlight looked double beneath my feet. I had left the physical therapy clinic 40 minutes late, exhausted, hungry, and thinking only about getting home when I noticed the same gray sedan I had seen twice that week. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Then I crossed the street. The sedan turned. I doubled back toward Michigan Avenue. It followed. By the time I reached the parking garage, my pulse was hammering so loudly I could barely hear the rain. A man stepped out near the entrance behind me. I didn't wait to see what he wanted. I walked fast, then faster, gripping my phone while searching for somewhere bright, crowded, safe. Half a block ahead, golden lights spilled from the entrance of an expensive hotel. 3 black SUVs waited along the curb. Men in dark suits stood beneath the awning, quiet and watchful. And in the center of them stood him. Tall, black overcoat, no umbrella despite the rain. He wasn't doing anything remarkable, yet everyone seemed arranged around him as if he were the fixed point in the room and the rest of the world had learned to move accordingly. I glanced behind me. The man from the garage was closer. Panic made the decision before reason could stop it. I crossed the final 20 feet, stepped beneath the awning, and slipped my hand around the stranger's arm. His entire group went silent. I forced a smile I couldn't feel and looked up at him. His eyes were gray, calm, almost unnervingly so. "There you are," I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "I've been looking everywhere for you." He looked at my hand first, then at my face. For one terrible second, I thought I had made an even bigger mistake. "Please," I whispered, "pretend you know me." Something changed in his expression. Barely anything. His gaze moved past my shoulder toward the sidewalk. I felt the man behind me stop. The stranger didn't threaten him, didn't raise his voice. He simply looked at him. That was enough. I heard hurried footsteps retreating across wet pavement. My lungs finally remembered how to breathe. "Thank you," I murmured, releasing the stranger's arm. I turned just enough to see the man disappearing into the rain. Before he vanished, he looked back once, not at me, but at the stranger beside me. His face had gone pale. Then I heard him say 2 words so quietly I almost missed them. "Mr. Blackwood." I looked back at the man whose arm I had grabbed. He was already watching me. And suddenly, I wondered why the person I had been afraid of was terrified of him. I kept staring at him because my brain refused to connect the man standing beside me with the fear I had just seen on someone else's face. Mr. Blackwood. The name meant nothing to me, but apparently it meant everything to the man who had followed me. "Who are you?" I asked. The stranger glanced toward the rain before looking back at me. "You approached me, Miss Carter." My stomach tightened. "I never told you my name." One of the suited men nearby shifted slightly, but Blackwood remained perfectly still. "Your clinic identification badge is hanging from your coat." I looked down. "Emily Carter, Lakeshore Physical Therapy." I almost laughed from relief, except nothing about that moment felt funny. "Right." I pulled the badge inside my coat. "Then thank you for helping me, Mr. Blackwood." I stepped away. Nobody stopped me. That surprised me more than it should have. "You are leaving?" he asked. That was the plan before tonight became completely insane. His eyes moved toward the corner where my pursuer had disappeared. "Do you know that man?" "No." "Has he followed you before?" I hesitated. "I have seen the car." "How many times?" His voice stayed quiet, but there was something unsettling about the precision of his questions. "Why does that matter to you?" "Because a man willing to follow a woman through downtown Chicago does not usually abandon the effort because she grabs a stranger's arm." I folded my arms. Unless the stranger is you. Silence. Rain whispered against the hotel awning. Somewhere behind us, a valet opened a car door without looking in our direction. Blackwood did not answer. That is what I thought, I said. So I will ask again. Who are you? His expression barely changed. Someone you should not have touched. The words should have sounded threatening. Somehow, they sounded more like a warning. Good to know. I will add that to tonight's growing list of terrible decisions. For the first time, something almost human flickered across his face. Not quite a smile. Have your driver bring the car, he told one of his men. I immediately shook my head. No. Blackwood looked at me. I was not asking you. That should have relieved me. Instead, I felt foolish. I can get home myself. I assumed you could. And you are not going to stop me? His gaze sharpened. Would you prefer that I did? Absolutely not. Then we understand each other. I turned and walked away, waiting for footsteps behind me. None came. I took a cab home instead of the train, checking the rear window every few blocks. No gray sedan. No black SUVs. By 12:35, I was standing outside my apartment in Lincoln Park, telling myself the worst was over. Then I noticed my door. It was open by less than an inch. I knew I had locked it. I pushed it wider and switched on the light. Nothing looked disturbed. My old couch was exactly where I had left it. My laptop sat on the kitchen counter. My television was still there. Even the $20 beside my keys had not moved. Then I saw the photograph on the table. I stopped breathing. It showed me leaving the clinic 3 weeks earlier, coffee in one hand, my work bag over my shoulder. I turned it over with trembling fingers. Nothing was written on the back. No explanation. No demand. Just proof that someone had been watching me long before tonight. And for the first time, the question frightening me was not why that man had run from Adrian Blackwood. It was why someone had been following me before I ever knew Adrian Blackwood existed. I did not sleep that night. Every sound in my apartment became evidence of something I could not explain. The refrigerator clicked, and I froze. Pipes shifted behind the wall, and my heart jumped. By sunrise, I had checked the lock 4 times and studied that photograph until the edges felt permanently pressed into my fingertips. At 8:15, I walked into the nearest police station with the picture sealed inside a plastic folder. The officer at the desk listened carefully, asked about the man who had followed me, and wrote everything down. But there was no message, no visible damage to my apartment, and nothing in the photograph identified whoever had taken it. Call immediately if he approaches you again, she told me. I nodded, although the advice felt painfully small compared with the fear sitting inside my chest. I spent Friday pretending my life was normal. At Lakeshore Physical Therapy, I checked schedules, returned patient calls, carried fresh towels into treatment rooms, and smiled whenever someone asked if I was tired. By 6:30, the last patient had left. I was shutting down the front desk computer when headlights washed across the clinic windows. A black sedan stopped outside. My stomach dropped. Adrian Blackwood stepped onto the sidewalk. I was through the front door before common sense could catch me. Are you following me now? I demanded. He stopped several feet away. The evening wind moved through his dark coat, but his expression remained infuriatingly calm. No, you knew where I worked. Your badge told me. Someone entered my apartment. Last night. That changed him. Not dramatically. Adrian simply became still in a way that made me wish he had reacted more normally. Was anything taken? No. Something was left. I pulled the photograph from my bag. This. He studied it without touching it. Then he opened his coat, reached into an inside pocket, and removed an envelope. You need to see this. Why? Because the photograph in your hand is not the only one. He gave me the envelope. Inside was another picture of me standing outside a grocery store, carrying 2 paper bags toward my car. My mouth went dry. Where did you get this? One of my people found it this morning. Your people? I looked up sharply. Who exactly are your people? He ignored the question. Look at the date. Tiny numbers were printed along the bottom edge. 3 weeks earlier. Before the hotel. Before the rain. Before I had ever touched his arm. This does not make sense. No, Adrian said. It does not. I searched his face for some sign that this was a performance. Why would anyone photograph me? That is what I intend to find out. Anger pushed through my fear. You do not get to intend anything about my life. I barely know you. Then go home. His answer stopped me. What? Go home, Emily. Lock your door. Forget my name if you can. His eyes shifted toward the dark windows across the street. But before you do, understand something. The man last night was watching you. Whoever took these photographs was watching you. Those may not be the same person. A cold sensation moved through me. You are trying to scare me. No, I am trying not to. He finally looked directly at me. Last night was not when you entered my world, Emily. It was when you finally noticed it. Then his gaze moved past my shoulder. I turned. Across the street, beneath a flickering bus shelter light, someone was standing perfectly still, watching the clinic. The figure across the street disappeared the moment I looked directly at him. 1 second, he was standing beneath the bus shelter light. The next, there was only rain and an empty sidewalk. Did you see him? I asked. Adrian did not answer immediately. He lifted one hand, and the driver beside the black sedan seemed to understand without a word. He crossed the street while another man appeared from somewhere behind the car. That frightened me almost as much as the stranger vanishing. Adrian did not shout. He did not chase anyone. People simply moved when he decided they should. Who are you? I asked again. You keep asking the wrong question. Then give me the right one. His gray eyes settled on mine. Ask why someone has been watching you for 3 weeks. I am asking why you have men who respond to hand signals like this as normal. Silence stretched between us. I went back inside the clinic and locked the door. Adrian remained outside. He did not follow. That night, I searched his name. At first, everything looked respectable. Blackwood Holdings, commercial real estate, shipping investments, restaurants, charitable foundations. Then I searched deeper. Old newspaper articles used careful language. Alleged connections, unconfirmed associations, federal investigations that ended without charges, business rivals who refused interviews. One article called Adrian Blackwood one of Chicago's most influential private figures. Another called him something very different. A crime lord. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. The man whose arm I had grabbed was not merely wealthy. He was feared. Saturday morning, I found him exactly where one article said he spent weekends, a private restaurant overlooking the Chicago River. I expected someone to stop me. Nobody did. Adrian sat alone near the windows with coffee and a newspaper. You knew I would search your name? I said. He folded the paper. Eventually. Is it true? Which part? Do not do that. My voice came out sharper than I intended. Do not make me sort through rumors while you sit there pretending this is a normal conversation. He studied me quietly. Some stories are exaggerated. Some are not. My hands tightened around my purse strap. People are afraid of you. Yes. No denial. No excuse. Somehow that single word unsettled me more than a speech could have. Then understand something, I said. I asked you to pretend to protect me for 30 seconds. I did not give you permission to own the rest of my life. The restaurant became strangely quiet. A server near the bar lowered his eyes. 2 men at another table stopped speaking. Adrian leaned back slightly. I expected anger. Instead, he looked almost surprised. On you, he repeated. You had someone find another photograph. You appeared at my workplace. Your men watch every door around you. What am I supposed to think? That I am trying to determine why someone selected you. I did not ask you to. No. His voice softened. You did not. That answer stole some of my anger. Adrian reached into his coat and placed the second photograph on the table between us. Then choose, Emily. Walk away, and I will not approach you again. Or sit down and help me understand why this photograph matters. I should have left. Instead, something on the back corner of the picture caught my attention. A tiny black symbol, almost hidden beneath the date. Adrian saw my expression change. You recognize it? He asked. I did. I had seen that same symbol years ago, stamped inside a wooden box that had belonged to my father. Where did you see this? Adrian asked, and for the first time since I had met him, his calm sounded forced. I kept my eyes on the tiny black symbol. 3 narrow lines crossed by a circle. Simple enough to forget, except I had spent half my childhood staring at it. My father had a wooden box in his office, I said. Walnut, about the size of a shoebox. That mark was stamped inside the lid. Adrian's fingers stopped beside his coffee cup. What was in it? I do not know. You never opened it? I was a kid. My father kept it locked. I looked at him. Why? Adrian turned the photograph over and studied the symbol. Around us, silverware touched plates, and the river moved beyond the windows. But our table felt sealed away from everything. Because I have seen this mark before. Where? He hesitated. I hated that hesitation. Adrian. It was the first time I had used his first name. Something flickered in his eyes. It belonged to a private network that handled information for powerful people, he said. Years ago, someone inside that network betrayed my family. A cold weight settled in my stomach. And you think my father was involved? I think his name appeared in records connected to it. I pushed back from the table. You knew about my father? Not when you grabbed my arm. But afterward? Yes. The answer landed harder because he did not soften it. How long afterward? This morning. I stared at him. Less than 24 hours. Yet somehow it felt like he had stolen weeks from me. My father was an accountant, I said. He drove an 8-year-old Ford, complained about property taxes, and watched baseball every Sunday. He was not part of some secret organization. Ordinary lies can hide complicated histories. You would know. Adrian accepted the insult without reacting. That made me angrier. I stood. I am done. Emily. No. You said I could choose. I am choosing. He did not stop me. I made it halfway to the door before a memory hit me so sharply that I froze. The wooden box. My father had given it to me 3 days before he died. I had been 17. He had placed it in my hands and said, "Keep this somewhere boring. Boring things survive because nobody looks twice." At the time, I thought grief had already made him strange. After the funeral, I had packed the box with his papers and forgotten about it. I turned around. Adrian was still seated, watching me. I have the box. He rose slowly. Where? In a storage unit outside the city. Unless my mother moved it before she relocated to Arizona. His expression changed immediately. Do not go there alone. There it is again. This is not about controlling you. Then what is it about? Adrian stepped closer but stopped several feet away, leaving the distance between us entirely mine. Someone photographed you before we met. Someone entered your apartment without taking anything. And someone deliberately placed a symbol connected to your father's past where you would eventually see it. His voice dropped. That is not coincidence. I wanted to argue. I could not. My phone rang inside my purse. The storage company. I answered. Miss Carter, a nervous voice said. We are calling about your unit. Someone came in this morning asking whether you still rented it. My hand tightened around the phone. Who? There was a pause. He said his name was Ryan Cole. I looked at Adrian. He had heard enough to understand. Ryan, the man from the rain. Ryan Cole. The name stayed between us after I ended the call, turning the quiet restaurant into something colder. Adrian did not ask whether I still wanted to leave. He simply said, we are not going to that storage unit. That box belonged to my father. And someone who followed you already knows where it might be. So I am supposed to hide? His jaw tightened. For tonight, yes. I hated how reasonable that sounded. An hour later, Chicago had disappeared behind us as Adrian's sedan traveled north through steady rain. I sat beside him watching wet highway lights streak across the window. Nobody spoke until the city thinned into dark neighborhoods and trees. Where are we going? I asked. Somewhere connected to none of my businesses. That is not an answer. A house near Lake Forest. Yours? Technically. I gave him a look. Do powerful men have a different definition of ownership? A faint smile touched his face. Sometimes. The house surprised me. No marble entrance. No enormous gates. Just a quiet 2-story home surrounded by trees, with a porch light glowing against the rain. Adrian dismissed the driver after we entered. That surprised me more. Where are your people? Nearby. Of course they are. Inside, everything was simple. Dark wood, old books, a stone fireplace. The kind of place someone actually lived in instead of displaying. Adrian handed me a clean towel because rain had soaked my hair during the short walk from the car. Guest room is upstairs, first door on the right. You expect me to sleep? No, I expect you to try. I almost laughed. Instead, exhaustion finally caught me. I sat on the couch and stared at the photograph still inside my purse. My father died 9 years ago, I said. Adrian remained near the window. Heart attack. At least that is what I was told. Saying it aloud suddenly made the familiar explanation feel fragile. 3 days before he died, he gave me that box. Adrian turned. What exactly did he say? I closed my eyes. I could almost smell my father's coffee and hear the baseball game playing from the living room. Keep this somewhere boring. Boring things survive because nobody looks twice. Adrian went completely still. You recognize that phrase. It was not a question. Something similar was used by the man who betrayed my family. My eyes opened. And you waited until now to tell me? Because resemblance is not proof. You seem comfortable deciding what I deserve to know. Emily. No. Every answer creates another secret. I stood too quickly, caught my foot against the edge of the rug, and reached for the table. Adrian moved instinctively, then stopped before touching me. That tiny hesitation silenced me. He waited until I steadied myself. I am fine. I know. Later, I went upstairs, but sleep refused to come. Around 2 in the morning, I walked downstairs for water. Adrian was sitting beside the front window in darkness, fully dressed, watching the road. You have not slept, I said. Neither have you. I was trying. Try again. There was no command in his voice this time. Just exhaustion. I went upstairs. When morning light woke me, I was on the couch downstairs with no memory of returning there. Adrian's coat had been placed over me like a blanket. He was still by the window, coffee untouched beside him. For a man the entire city seemed afraid of, he looked strangely alone. Why are you doing this? I asked softly. Adrian looked at me, then toward the gray morning beyond the glass. Because someone decided you were useful before you ever knew you were in danger. That is not what I asked. Silence. Then his phone lit up on the table. A message appeared across the screen before he could turn it over. Storage unit secured. Carter file confirmed. My breath stopped. Not the box. Not Ryan. Carter file. I looked at Adrian. You already had a file on my father. You already had a file on my father. The words came out quieter than I intended, but Adrian heard every one of them. He looked at the phone, then at me, and the silence told me enough. How long? I asked. Emily. How long? He stood slowly. The file existed before I knew you. That is not an answer. My father's wooden box, the photographs, the symbol, every careful half-truth Adrian had given me rearranged itself inside my head. You told me his name appeared in old records. You made it sound like you discovered that yesterday. I discovered the connection to you yesterday. But you knew about Daniel Carter. Adrian's expression hardened, not with anger, but with something that looked dangerously close to regret. Yes. One word. Again. He had a talent for making one word feel heavier than an entire confession. My father worked as an accountant for a logistics company 20 years ago, he said. That company moved information for the network I told you about. Daniel Carter's name appeared in financial records connected to the man who betrayed my family. Was my father the traitor? I do not know. Then why did you not tell me any of this? Because I wanted proof before I gave you a reason to question everything you remembered about him. I laughed once, without humor. You do not get to decide which truth I can handle. I know. Do you? I pulled his coat from my shoulders and placed it on the couch. Because every time you say you are protecting me, another door closes. Adrian took one step forward, then stopped. No doors are locked. That is not what I mean. My voice shook now, and I hated it. A cage does not become freedom because the walls are expensive. Something changed in his face. I saw the words land. For once, Adrian Blackwood had no immediate answer. I grabbed my purse. I am leaving. There may still be people looking for you. Then tell me what I need to know, and let me decide what risk I am willing to take. He stared at me for several seconds. Then he reached for his phone. Everyone pulls back, he said when someone answered. No car following her. No one outside her apartment. No one at the clinic unless she asks. He ended the call. I blinked. That easy. No, he said. But that's simple. He walked to the front door and opened it. Morning air swept inside, cool and damp, carrying the smell of wet pine. A sedan waited at the end of the driveway. The driver will take you anywhere you choose. After that, he leaves. I looked at Adrian, suddenly unsure why getting exactly what I demanded hurt more than fighting him for it. You are really letting me walk away? His eyes held mine. If you stay because you are afraid of leaving, then I have become exactly what you think I am. I wanted him to explain himself. I wanted him to apologize. Worse, some small part of me wanted him to ask me to stay. He did none of those things. So I walked past him. At the car, I turned back once. Adrian remained in the doorway, alone, making no attempt to follow. 40 minutes later, I asked the driver to leave me 2 blocks from my apartment. He obeyed without argument. I had barely reached my building when a familiar voice came from behind me. Emily. I froze. Ryan Cole stood near the corner, both hands visible, his face exhausted rather than threatening. Do not run, he said. I was never trying to hurt you. I stepped backward. Then why were you following me? Ryan glanced down the street, as if checking whether we were alone. Because somebody inside Blackwood's organization knows what your father left you. My heartbeat stumbled. How do you know about the box? Ryan looked directly at me. Because your father asked me to make sure it reached you if they ever started looking again. Your father asked me. Ryan's words made the sidewalk seem to tilt beneath my feet. My father died 9 years ago. I know. Then explain how a man I have never met received instructions from him. Ryan glanced toward the intersection. Not here. No. I am done following mysterious men into places because they claim to know what is best for me. He almost smiled. You sound like Daniel. Hearing my father's name from him made my chest tighten. Ryan reached slowly into his coat and produced a folded envelope. He gave this to my uncle years ago. My uncle worked with him. When he passed away last month, I found it with instructions to locate you if the old network became active again. He handed it to me. My name was written across the front in handwriting I recognized instantly. Emily. My father's handwriting. I forgot the cold. Forgot Adrian. Forgot everything except the way my father's capital E always leaned to. Far right. What is in the box? I whispered. Records. Names. Transactions. Enough information to expose people who survived by remaining invisible. Including Adrian? Maybe. But Blackwood is not the reason I followed you. Ryan lowered his voice. Someone inside his organization has been searching for that box. I thought about the photographs. My apartment. The storage unit. Who? Victor Hale. Blackwood's senior operations advisor. The name meant nothing to me. Why should I believe you? You should not. Verify everything. That answer surprised me. Ryan gave me a telephone number written on a card. Your father trusted evidence more than people. So should you. Before I could ask another question, he walked away. I stood there for several minutes before calling Adrian. He answered immediately. Emily, do you have someone named Victor Hale working for you? Silence. Where did you hear that name? Answer me. Yes. My stomach dropped. Meet me at the storage facility in 1 hour. Come alone. Absolutely not. Then I go without you. Adrian exhaled slowly. 1 hour. The storage facility sat 20 miles west of downtown, rows of beige buildings beneath a pale afternoon sky. Adrian arrived alone. No convoy. No men in dark suits. Just him. I showed him the envelope. He read my father's short letter twice. His face revealed almost nothing until he reached Victor's name. Hale has been with my organization for 14 years, he said. Then maybe you trusted the wrong person. Maybe. We opened my unit together. Dust-covered old furniture, Christmas decorations, and boxes from my childhood. The wooden box sat inside a plastic container marked tax records. Boring things survive because nobody looks twice. My hands trembled as I lifted it. The small lock had already been opened. Inside were folders, an old flash drive, and a sealed letter addressed to me. Adrian did not reach for any of it. You are not going to look? I asked. It belongs to you. That mattered more than I wanted it to. I opened the letter. My father's words were simple. He had discovered that people inside the network were using legitimate companies to hide illegal financial activity. He had copied records because he feared innocent employees would eventually be blamed. One sentence stopped me. Victor Hale knows where the records came from. Do not trust him. I handed the page to Adrian. His eyes moved across at once. Then his phone rang. He listened without speaking. Understood, he finally said. After ending the call, he looked toward me. Hale disappeared this morning. Because he knows we found this? Possibly. What happens now? Adrian looked at the files, then at me. I dismantle every part of my organization he could use. I stared at him. Even if it costs you everything? His answer came without hesitation. If my power depends on protecting a traitor, then it was never power worth keeping. For the first time since I had met Adrian Blackwood, I watched him choose what he was willing to lose. The files from my father's box did not contain dramatic confessions or some perfect list of criminals waiting to be exposed. They contained something quieter and, in Adrian's world, far more dangerous. Dates, company names, payments, signatures, and years of carefully hidden decisions. Victor Hale had used businesses connected to Adrian's organization without Adrian knowing the full extent of it. My father had discovered the pattern years earlier and preserved enough evidence to prove it. Adrian spent the next several days dismantling everything Hale had touched. Contracts were canceled. Accounts were frozen through attorneys and financial institutions. Records were turned over to the proper authorities. Men who had spent years answering to Adrian suddenly discovered that loyalty no longer protected dishonesty. Hale eventually surrendered through an attorney when there was nowhere left for his lies to hide. Adrian never told me exactly how much the cleanup cost him. Newspapers called it a restructuring. Business reporters called it an empire shrinking overnight. I knew better. He had been given a choice between protecting his power and protecting the truth. He chose the truth. And then he disappeared from my life. No black sedan outside the clinic. No quiet driver near my apartment. No messages asking whether I was safe. He had promised me freedom, and apparently Adrian Blackwood kept promises even when keeping them hurt. 3 weeks passed. Chicago moved toward winter. I returned to work, helped patients through exercises, complained about coffee, paid bills, and tried to convince myself that normal was exactly what I wanted. Ryan called once to tell me the records had cleared my father's name. Daniel Carter had not betrayed anyone. He had tried to protect innocent people from being blamed for decisions made above them. I cried after that call, not because I had doubted my father, but because grief had finally given me an answer after 9 years of silence. On Friday evening, I left the clinic and found myself walking downtown without planning to. By the time I recognized the hotel, rain had started falling lightly. The same golden entrance. The same polished windows. The same curb where one terrified decision had changed everything. Adrian stood beneath the awning. Alone. No entourage. No black SUVs. Just a man in a dark coat looking across the street as if he had nowhere particular to be. He saw me and became completely still. Emily. Adrian. Neither of us moved for a moment. Then I walked toward him. He kept his hands at his sides. No assumption. No command. Not even a question. So I reached out and took his arm. His eyes dropped to my hand, exactly as they had that first night. Running from someone again? He asked. I smiled. No. Something softened in his face. Then why are you holding on to me? I looked at the street behind me. Nobody was following. Nobody was watching. For once, there was nothing to escape. Because this time, I know whose arm I am choosing. Adrian said nothing. He did not need to. He simply turned his hand beneath mine, giving me every opportunity to pull away. I did not. The first time I held his arm, I needed someone powerful enough to make another man let me go. The second time, I held it because the most powerful man I had ever met had finally learned how.